Hello and welcome back to Jenna Gets Creative. Last Thursday you saw me do a no-box art-box version of this month's basic sketchbox, and this week it's time to unbox and do the real premium sketchbox for October 2019. I don't keep up with a sketchbox subscription these days because I don't find it offers the same value in terms of savings that Scrawlrbox does, especially since I'll always want the premium box and be disappointed if I only get the basic, and the premium is more expensive. But I did want to get the Inktober box because they do such a good job of giving us great ink-focused supplies for Inktober. I'll probably always grab the sketchbox in October because of that, and one of these days when I'm earning enough from all this, or if SketchBox decides to sponsor me, I'd love to pick this back up as a regular subscription. I will have the full contents information and all of the costs and savings calculations in the description box down below, just like I do for Scrawlrbox and for my no-box art-box videos, and as usual I will convert the listed prices in USD over to CAD and pounds sterling as well. I do try to do those conversions as close as possible to upload time, but if you're watching this too far in the future, the conversions may be a little off. Exchange rates are always changing. This month's print is by Andy Chang. You can pause the video and read his blurb and get his links if you want to, or go find him on SketchBox socials. It definitely looks like he used exactly what's in this box to create this piece, which is always nice to see. Sometimes that isn't the case. I love getting all these prints in subscription boxes. My office/art room is slowly filling up with prints on all the walls. I wish more companies would do this, not just Scrawlrbox and SketchBox and special collaboration releases like Jazzy Art Box. I'm going to read through the information card that came in the box and talk about the supplies as we read them off the card, and then I'll talk about the piece I did and give my overall impressions. I am doing another Linktober piece, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end as well. But first, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. YouTube has a new system going on with notifications. Yippee. So if you notice that the bell is just an outline, that means you're getting personalized notifications, which is their way of saying not all of them. If you want to make sure you're getting all the notifications from me or any other channel you subscribe to, make sure the bell icon is filled in. I upload every Tuesday and Thursday at minimum, and some weeks I have bonus videos. This is indeed a bonus week. I'll have a very special extra video out tomorrow. It's the third Friday of the month, if that gives you a clue at all. If you like this video, please do hit the like button and leave a comment down below. I love reading your comments. I do reply to everyone, and I love it when we start having conversations down there. Don't be afraid to keep the conversation going. Ask me something. Say more than just nice work, so I can say more than thanks, and we'll have a good time. I do also have last year's October Premium card here, so I'll compare wherever appropriate. The first item is Kuretake Zig Black Ink 60. That's a bottle of Sumi ink, and it says the retail price is $6.95 US dollars. Again, that is in USD. I'll have CAD and pound sterling conversions down below. The card says, "This month is all about ink. We love this ink's ability to dry quickly and become waterproof. It plays well with markers and other inks and can be diluted with water to create beautiful gray washes." Last year, the first item on the card was also a Kuretake Zig Sumi ink. That was the Kuretake Zig Sumi ink 60, which was marked staff favorite, and it was listed as retailing for $8.34 US. I'm not sure if the two ink formulas really are that different in price, or if they've come down in price since last year. I do still have and use the Sumi ink from last year. I love Kuretake's inks. Last year's ink seems to be the classic Sumi ink offering, as it claims to be the professional grade and talks about how it's the liquid form of traditional Sumi ink sticks. This year's bottle, the Black Ink 60, talks about being quick drying, so clearly the formula is different. I did swatch both and test both side by side during my swatching process. The Sumi ink, which I'm going to go ahead and assume is pure Sumi ink in liquid form, is very nice and black. It's easy to get a flat finish without it streaking, and it is indeed waterproof once it has dried completely. Large areas done in this ink have a bit of a shine to them, so it's not completely matte. I swatched this year's bottle, the quick drying formula, beside the original. The small amounts I used, I didn't notice that it's particularly quicker to dry than the other formula, but afterwards I did watch somebody else's video comparing the two, and when you cover large areas, there is a considerable difference in drying time. The Black Ink 60 versus the Sumi Ink 60 does indeed dry a lot faster. I also noticed that this ink waters down into a lighter wash easier, so it's probably not as concentrated as the original, and it dries much more matte. If they are indeed normally different prices, that would certainly make sense. The quick dry is probably just a slightly diluted version, but otherwise the same formula. If you got last year's premium box but didn't get this year's box and you're curious about this version of the ink, just make a very dark wash with the Sumi Ink 60 so that it still looks black rather than gray, but you've added water to it, and that'll give you a good idea of what this is like. So I didn't demonstrate on camera, but the caps of Zig Sumi ink bottles have notches on the rim. They're there so that when you've got the bottle open and you set the cap down upside down, you can rest your dirty brush or dip pen over it and it won't roll away or get ink on whatever you don't want it to. Moving on, next we have a Winsor Newton white drying ink bottle, which retails for $5.49 US. The card says that this pigment-based ink is great for going over dark areas to create highlights or bright white strokes. It's a little transparent and allows the flexibility to brighten certain spots to the exact shade you want. It's interesting to me that this is a pigment ink, since most of the Winsor Newton drawing inks in these adorable little square bottom bottles are dye-based inks, which aren't archival. Since this one is pigment-based, it's basically a gel pen in a bottle. It should be archival. By that I mean it should be waterproof when dry, it should be light fast, and it shouldn't yellow with age. I tested it during my swatching process over all of the materials in this box, and it either goes right over top or mixes in, depending on how waterproof the thing underneath it is. I do love Winsor Newton inks, and I didn't have a good white ink in a bottle besides my Daler-Rowney acrylic ink, so this is a very welcome addition to my collection. I don't use the acrylic ink very often because in order to get a completely opaque layer, you have to lay down a pretty thick layer, and then because it's acrylic and you're using a flexible surface, it cracks. This shouldn't do that quite as much since it's pigment suspended in a water-based ink solution, so it'll go down thinner. Again, it's a lot like gel pen ink. If you're concerned about archival supplies, Winsor Newton drawing inks generally aren't the best choice for you, but I definitely say the white pigment ink is an exception. Pick up one of these if you're looking for a good white ink. Next up, Kuretake Zig Cambio Indigo, which retails for $9.80 US. The card says, "First look." We love these brush pens. Unlike other brush pens that are fed via squeezing the barrel to get the ink to the tip, this one regulates the flow of ink to make sure you get the perfect amount of ink without overflow dripping. This color is brand new to the USA and is appearing first in SketchBox before it hits stores. So this really is a neat item. I'm familiar with the squeeze bottle variety, and last year's Scrawler box for Inktober sent out a Pentel brush like that. Since this one is self-regulating, it has an extra little stopper to remove, and at first I didn't, and I was momentarily confused about fitting it back together. You'd think that the fact that the extra piece was also bright yellow would give me a clue, but apparently not. I did try to see if I could squeeze the barrel at all, and no, you can't. It's hard plastic. I'm curious if this can be refilled when it runs out. It definitely seems like the sort of product that can be refilled, but I don't know if it'll come apart easily to refill it. More research is needed. I absolutely love this indigo color. It's beautiful. It took a little while to get the tip completely saturated, but now that it's started, every time I pick it up, it's nice and juicy. It does say to store it with the tip pointing up, so I'm keeping it upright in my little desktop pencil basket. I'll report back next time I use it in a video if that ends up drying out the tip. I'm wondering if it's supposed to be stored this way because it might let too much ink through and have it pooling in the cap otherwise, or if it's just a precautionary measure. It is waterproof once dry, but you can get limited watercolor effects if you want to work with it while it's wet. I tested adding it into wet spots on the paper, and I tested going over it with water before it was allowed to dry. Dipping it into wet spots allows the ink to feather out like any other wet into wet work, which leads me to believe you could probably pick this up directly off the bristles with another pre-wetted brush or paint onto a palette and use it like watercolor if you want to. If you put this down on paper first and then go over it with water, you'll get very even wash of color in your water, but you won't blend out the original brush strokes from the Cambio brush tip. It's not completely water soluble, it dries matte, it does mix with the Winsor Newton white ink, even though it's thoroughly dried before you go over it with the white ink. SketchBox also have us using a Copic drawing pen 2mm black, which retails for $5.95 US. The card says these fountain pens allow for a variety of line thicknesses depending on pressure and angle. They're great for line drawing and hatching. I'm not very experienced with fountain pens, and this is only the second fountain pen I've ever owned. The other is a cheaper model of Jinhao that I got on Wish. With both of these fountain pens, I find they're quite scratchy at first. I've seen a few other people use this Copic fountain pen on YouTube recently since the special Inktober box from Art Snacks also had it, and it looks like they write nicely right out of the box for just about everybody else. So I'm wondering if there's actually something up with my pen. I do live in a cold climate, and we have had very brief snowfalls in the midst of rain showers already in the last month, but the ground isn't frozen yet. We're not getting frost or anything. I doubt this froze during shipping. If anyone watching is more familiar with fountain pens, I'd love to hear some suggestions and tips in the comments down below for fixing this pen. Does it need to be cleaned? How do I do that? I was surprised to find out that this is not waterproof. Since all of Copic's fine liners are, I figured this would be as well, but apparently not, which leads me to believe it's a different ink formula. Maybe their usual pen ink doesn't flow right for a fountain pen? I don't know. It also reactivates and turns gray with the white Winsor Newton ink. In general, I'm glad this was in the box because I've been very curious about Copic's fountain pens versus their usual multi-liners, but there are other fine liners in this box, which we haven't got to yet, so I don't feel like this adds anything to the experience. It isn't even a different tip size. It would have been nice if they included a dip pen instead, or perhaps a Copic multiliner SP in a different nib size than what's included in the other fine liners we got, or a regular 03 multiliner in a different color. Last year, the Copic offering in the box was a pair of Copic multiliner pens, a black in the medium brush nib and an 03 fineliner nib in the color Cobalt, and for comparison, those are worth $3.99 US each. Next up is the Kuretake Zig Clean Color Dot Pen Gray, which retails for $3.40 US. When I replicated this box last week for the No Box Art Box Challenge, I estimated the cost of this pen a little low in the voiceover because I could only find packs on Amazon listings as my reference point. I hadn't received this box yet. I did include the corrected price based on this card in the description on that video. Just wanted to say that. The card says new dual tip marker with a 0.5mm fine tip on one end and a flexible dot tip on the other. Dots of various sizes can be drawn by adjusting pressure applied to the tip. It's great for adding shadows, stippling techniques, or a pointillism approach. When I pulled mine out of the box, the cap was off, and I was afraid it was going to be dried out, but it wasn't. That probably happened as I was unboxing. There was nothing even close to similar in last year's box, so this is truly a unique offering this year, and given that it's in both basic and premium boxes, it's also definitely something they're pushing this year. I do love Kuretake products, and I've always been interested in their clean color line, but given that it is clean color, I was under the impression that it would be water soluble. It isn't. It's waterproof once dry. It also does not budge or blend at all under the white Winsor Newton ink, which is nice. This is a very neutral gray, probably around a 5 tonal value. The 0.5mm tip is a tapered plastic nib like the Micron PN, not a metal-clad fineliner nib, so you can get a little bit of line variation from that end as well. I thought the dot end was gimmicky when I first heard about these. It reminded me of the Crayola stamp markers, but I've played around with it and I absolutely love the fact that I can get a large variety of dot sizes and it's very easy to control the variation. You can also use that end in large areas quite easily. I'm not in the market for water-based markers that aren't fully water soluble, so I won't be going out and buying more, but if another box sends me others in different colors, I won't be disappointed. Next, we have our graphite inclusion, the Staedtler Mars Lumograph 12B pencil, which retails for $2.20 US. The card says, we also included a carbon-rich dark pencil to sketch out your piece before laying down the ink. Real short and sweet there. I love Staedtler pencils, and I do have the mid-size tin of these drawing pencils, which starts at 8B and goes all the way up to 2H, and I love them. Besides the few Faber-Castell and Viking pencils I've got in boxes over the last 2 years, Staedtlers are my favorite. That said, I have very little love or use for something as soft and chunky as a 12B lead. Holy crap. None of my sharpeners can put a very fine point on this bad boy. It has a lot of graphite sheen to it, and it's very difficult to erase. Given that they didn't even bother to give us a pencil last year, and they didn't put one in the basic box this year, and they've specifically indicated that they want us to do our preliminary sketch with this, I have no idea why they went with such a soft lead. I prefer a 2H, US number 4 pencil for sketching, but I'll sketch with any 2B or harder. Softer than 2B and you're getting into variations used for full graphite pieces, and that's clearly not what we're doing in an Inktober themed box, but I'll stop complaining now. This is the softest lead in my pencil collection, so I guess it has value to me in that I didn't have a 12B, so there's that. Flipping the card over, we're nearing the end of the supplies. We have the Marabou Graphics Black 4 set, which retails for $6.99 US. The card says, for set line widths and black brush strokes, we included this set from Marabou, which includes one each of the 0.2mm, 0.4mm, 0.8mm, and brush tip pens. It's great for adding illustrative elements, details, and finishing touches to your art this month. I do already have this exact set from the Jazzy Art Box, so I pulled those out to use today instead, and these are also in the basic box, so I used them in last week's No Box Art Box video. I'm keeping this pack unused in the box for now. I might just save them for when mine run out, or I may include them in a giveaway. We shall see. Comment down below if you'd like to see those in a giveaway soon. I think it's interesting that the card specifically said 0.2mm, 0.4mm, etc., because that's not quite how this type of fineliner works. The line ends up being those sizes, but the nib itself will be 0.05mm smaller. The O2 puts down a 0.2mm line, but the nib is 0.15mm, and so on. This is yet another excellent brand of pigment ink fineliners. They're waterproof when dry, they stand up well to alcohol inks like Copic markers, and they don't smudge or blend under the white Winsor Newton ink, which probably means they'll stand up to gel pens as well. If you've watched my Jazzy Art Box unboxing, last week's No Box Art Box video, or either of this year's Inktober pen reviews on my channel, then you already know all of my thoughts on these pens, so I won't talk a lot about them now. If you want to know more, go check those videos out. I'll probably include one of the Inktober pen reviews in the cards on this video, so click the little eye symbol in the top right if you're watching on desktop, or you can easily find them in my uploads feed or my Ink and Line Art playlist. Last year's Premium box did give us an additional fineliner, the Montana Sketch Liner in size 01, which cost $4.19 US on its own. I'd definitely say this Marabou pack is a much better deal. Last but not least, we got a Silver Brush Silver Silk 88 flat shader size 4, which retails for $6.55 US. The card says, finally, we include a flat shader brush from Silver Brush in a small size to use with the included ink from Zig and Winsor Newton. The shape of the brush head allows for tons of flexibility in stroke thickness, and it's great for creating bold strokes, line work, calligraphy, and so much more. This is indeed a very nice brush. The card keeps on calling it Silver Brush, but the brand is Silver White. All one word, and the product line is bright. The Premium box got the size 4, and the Basic box got size 2. If you watched my No Box Art Box rendition of the basic box last week, you'll know I said the advertised measurements of the number 2 matched my 1/4 inch flat brush from Dynasty, but unless this is golf rules and the 2 is bigger than the 4, I doubt it's actually true. This brush is narrower than the 1/4 inch flat brush by about a third. Last year's brush and the substitute I made in the No Box Art video last week, the Dynasty Black and Gold 1/4 inch flat brush, which retails for $9.45, so this year's offering is quite a bit cheaper. That's forgivable because this year gave us much more items, but the price difference is definitely reflected in the quality. The silver white brush does not feel like it's as high of a quality brush as the Dynasty brush, and I found it a lot harder to clean after using it in the ink than the Dynasty brush. I was a bad girl and didn't clean my Dynasty brush right away after making last week's No Box Art Box video, so I ended up cleaning both of the brushes at the same time, and even left to dry a bit longer. The Dynasty brush was way easier to clean. The silver brush seems to hold the ink way up in the ferrule, and it takes multiple scrub and rinse cycles to get it out. It's a very nice shader brush though, and in this exact size and shape, it's probably the highest quality brush I currently own. The final 2 items in last year's premium box included that we don't have analogs for in this box are the Higgins Black Magic marker and the Strathmore sketch paper pad. This year's basic box did get the marker, but they didn't get the Cambio brush pen or the Copic fountain pen, and that still retails for $6.15, just like it did last year. It's a black India ink in a 2mm nib pump marker. I still have and use mine, and you saw me use it last week. This Strathmore sketch paper is 60-pound recycled paper in a 3x9-inch coil band pad from their 400 series, and that is the paper I'm using in this video. I thought it would be fitting to use it since I got it in this box last year. I don't end up reaching for this pad often because 3x9 is such an odd size, and at 60 pounds it's not a watercolor paper, nor is it suitable for markers, but sometimes it comes in handy. It holds up to ink surprisingly well. According to last year's card, it's valued at $4.99 US. I have absolutely no idea if this is a size Strathmore actually sells, or if they made a special run for SketchBox just to fit in their boxes. As I mentioned in the beginning, my piece today is for Inktober. I'm working ahead on the Linktober Quest list since I am doing a walkthrough video of those prompts on the 31st, and I need to have it all done in time to edit the video together nicely. This satisfies the prompt for day 28, which is something scary. As the hero in my quest game wanders through the post-volcanic eruption ruins of Kakariko village, he will trigger a memory, and this is what he sees. It's the goddess Farore pushing Malladus back into the darkness. I won't say more than that, so we don't spoil the walkthrough video too much, but I believe it also satisfies one of the other Linktober prompts for the same day. I did plan out all of the Linktober prompts ahead of time. If you're not familiar with Linktober or Inktober in general, I explained that all in last week's No Box Art Box video for this month's basic sketchbox, so go check that out. I've talked way too long to run through that again. We're a little over halfway through October now. How's your Inktober going? Let me know in the comments down below. And also tell me, which is your favorite Triforce goddess? I seem to keep picking Farore when the goddesses come up in the prompts, but I don't really have a favorite among the 3 myself. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow with a very special bonus video. Bye guys!